Hello everyone. Let us understand the 11 qualities of bad business analyst in this session. Quality number 1, refrain from sharing. Usually what happens is whenever you are working as a business analyst and there is a new member who has joined your team, or for that matter, if there is a developer who is asking you functional queries or a quality assurance person who is asking you functional queries, you tend to hesitate on giving them the information, thinking that they are wasting your time. Especially this happens in AMS project, that is annual maintenance support project, wherein the project is in operation since years now. Now you think that this shouldn't be a relevant information that needs to be shared with the developer, QA, or the new member, and they have to focus on what is going right now. Who cares about the past 8 to 10 years? But understand one thing: if you share these crucial information, whether in the form of a project overview, it would it would be very helpful for them in order to understand and establish a base around the business needs and objective for this project. So you shouldn't be refraining from sharing any sort of information as a business analyst. This is termed as very bad quality for a business analyst. Prefer work in isolation. If you are someone who prefers working in isolation, then God only can save you. Business analysis is not a profession for you, because business analysis encourages much more open communication. You cannot simply work in isolation. Assuming requirements. Now, you know the business very well, and you have worked with the business since some time now, and you know how the business function. But that doesn't entitle you to assume requirements and write your own requirements. Then what's the purpose of business analysis? What is the purpose of your job role? So you have to explicitly get the requirements from the business, even though you know some sort of requirements. Do not assume, because assumption is the mother of all mistakes. Rushing sign off. Now this is something that I have seen in most of the project. Business analysts are more concerned about getting the sign off on the requirements from the business user. Now here you need to understand one thing, that you need to give specific amount of time to the business user so that they can come with their feedback. Now if you force them to sign off your requirement, and if they do not give a thorough consideration on what you have documented, this could later result in rework of the development effort. And for that matter, analysis and quality assurance effort, give them sufficient amount of time so that they can go over whatever you have written and provide the constructive sign off, and the same time give you necessary feedback. Because if you take half sign off, then they would come up with new request on those requirement, and you would fight on that day that this is not a requirement, this is a change request. So avoid those blame game at a later phase, and do not rush for sign off. Give necessary time for business to sign off. Decision without consultation. Now here is the thing: whenever you are working as a business analyst, and if you are working with the same client for a specific period of time, maybe 5 to 6 years, you tend to understand the business process very well, and you know that this should be the requirement and this should be something business would be saying. But that doesn't entitle you to take decision on behalf of business. You are not paying for the project, business is paying. Then who gave you that authority to decide requirement on the business side? So you cannot take a decision without consultation with the business, even though you know the requirement. So this is also considered as one of the bad qualities of a business analyst. Fear of questions. Now if you are someone who do not like to question, who is not open about answering, who refrain themselves from asking the questions, thinking that I would be considered as fool, I would sound as stupid, then business analysis is not a profession for you. Business analysis is a profession for people who love communicating, who love asking questions, who do not get offended by the responses which you get from the business user. I'm not saying that every business user would be mature enough to understand your question, or mature enough to answer the or give you the right answers to your questions, but you need to understand that this is your job. You have to ask questions, and if you are someone who is fearful of asking questions, then business analysis is certainly not the right profession for you. Focus on following process. Now what happens is, I would put it in an example. Now you follow a 15-day sprint cycle, and on 14th day, just before your delivery, release planning, your business comes up with a requirement. Then you say them, okay, our sprint is getting over, we cannot accept this. Now you need to understand that you have to embrace feedback. You have to um, understand your business needs, rather than following a process that we are following this process and your request cannot be taken part of this. You need to understand that you cannot simply focus on following process, because that would bring in dissatisfaction between your relationship with the business. If you are someone who simply focuses on process, then this is also considered as a bad quality of business analyst. Ignore opportunities. Now this is an interesting piece. Now you go to a meeting, and you propose some option to your business, basis on some requirement. Now you know that option A consumes less effort, option B consumes a little more, and option C consumes a little more to that. And during this discussion, business chooses option 3, and they do not give you enough time to complete that. They say that okay, even though it is taking the maximum effort, you have to deliver this option 3 with the bare minimum timeline. And in addition to that, you sense that there could be some additional requirements, and now that business has given you very little time, you tend to ignore those requirements. Now this is something called as ignore opportunities. You don't embrace opportunity, you don't welcome or acknowledge opportunities, sensing that business has already reduced my time for this particular effort, so why should I take additional requirements, even though I sense this are the additional outcomes of this functionality. So don't do that. Do not ignore opportunities. Avoid interaction. If you are someone who is fearful of interacting with the business, or let's say your business user comes to you and say that I'm facing some issue in this system, you say that no, that is not my scope of work, rather my scope is only to talk to you and take requirement. Now when you are building a relationship, it shouldn't be always like you have to take the requirement, do the document, and work as a robot. No, it is not like that. You have to build a goodwill with the business for a longer period of time, because you are the business representative. You cannot simply say that okay, if that is not working, that is not my headache. Try to inspect what the business user the challenge what the business user is facing, and try to coordinate with some other department if it is feasible for you, and try to help the business user as much as possible, because this small things would build a longer relationship in business analysis. Think only documentation. Like I said, business analysis is not at all about documentation. It's more about communication, it's more about negotiation, it's more about analytical thinking of a particular business problem and giving them the right solution. It's not at all about documentation. So if you are thinking business analysis is only about documentation and you are working in that direction, then God only can save you. Business analysis, you won't survive further in this career. Hate learning. If you are someone who is like comes to a comfort zone very easily, who feels that okay, now I am the BA of the project, and I my work is to just take the interact with the business, translate those requirements or feedback into documentation, ensure my development team does the requirements, my QA teams does the necessary testing, and I provide the necessary delivery to the business. And consider this as a your daily routine, and you don't focus on yourself, you don't focus on learning, you don't focus on upgrading yourself, then business analysis is not the right profession. If you don't want to learn further, then business analysis is a business of knowledge. If you don't want to learn, if you don't want to upgrade yourself in all aspects, depending on your interest area, it could be your technical aspect, it could be a process aspect, it could be a domain aspect, you have to keep learning, keep acquiring new knowledge, then only you can survive in this industry. Because let me clarify it here, business analysis is the most dynamic profession in the IT industry. It keeps on changing year to year. You cannot say that what is a norm now would be a norm after 10 years. It keeps on changing, it keeps on changing. Understand what I'm trying to say. Business analysis is a profession of knowledge. Keep yourself upgraded, then only you can survive in this industry. And this upgradation can be in the process of technology, domain, or your process. There are some free business analysis training which are live on my YouTube channel. Consider following a playlist. If you did like this video, consider subscribing to this channel. Thanks everyone for your time invested in watching this video. Happy learning.